We are live. It is 3:05 Central Standard Time in the United States, 9:05 GMT, BST, something in the UK. It's time zones. Who knows? I don't know. It's Nomad Tech Project with Sam and Joe.
Hey.
Coming to you live this Mother's Day. All right, that's right. It's Mom's Day.
Oh, yeah, it's Mother's Day there, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. The 12th of May, 2024, the year of our Lord. And if you are watching the stream, great. If you aren't, gosh damn it, you should be. We have, it's now season 4, episode 1.
Hey,
Juan, the only Juan Carlos Bagnell. Some gadget guy has decided to lose an hour of his life that he's never getting back, so we appreciate him as always. Thanks for coming on, sir. Appreciate good seeing you again. It's been a while, so thanks for stopping by.
I'm on board this tradition. If you just want episode Juan, we should book seasons 5 and 6,
right?
So that we know. I've got them on the calendar. I can make sure I've set aside the time. Let's keep this ball rolling. This is a good one. I like this is a good tradition.
If we wanted Juan on Net More, we could have 21.
Right. Well,
like every 10 episodes, you have me come back.
Right. I think we've kind of gotten away from what exactly the original spirit of the Juan was. We've kind of like just leaned into it, and we're just like, hey, it's like sometimes you read a book, and and I don't know. I'm not trying to be hating on authors because I know they do lots of legwork, but like the chapters. Like 4 or 5 pages is a new chapter. It's chapter 303. I'm like, oh, okay. Can we not? It's a little pretentious. I don't like it. So again, we want to have a nice break inside of the seasons.
Sure.
So we just basically, and as you notice the title of the show, it is season 4, episode 1. Oh, that's what we're gonna do. We're running into all the shtickiness, and so why not just pile on? And I also have my endangered species.
I love it. Thank you so much. Beautiful. You've been repping the merch, and I need to like refresh because I haven't done anything new in the merch store for a while. So
yeah,
it's
and also it has worn well. I've had this probably 5. I don't know, probably when you first launched it. I don't know. It's probably been 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Ago. And it's gone through quite a few wash cycles, and it actually has held up. Actually, it's kind of
looks good.
It's got a distressed look, but it's still
yours has aged so much better than mine. I had the light pale blue, and now that one is like it's like disintegrating. Not the shirt itself, but like the print that they did on it. So whatever you've done, you have handled the headphone jack shirt way better than I have. So I'm glad to see it.
And I'm not having coffee today, but I do have my...
Hey!
Got my mug.
Love it.
I haven't broke the handle, because that seems to be always the thing. You got to be careful when... Oh, tumbler. That's a tumbler.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice. Anyways, and so instead of having coffee, this has an old-fashioned. Because Juan doesn't have his merch store. He doesn't have
Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, Happy Mother's Day. Absolutely. If
we're getting sauced for brunch.
Right, actually. And what's good is if you can make like just a rocks glass or maybe a beer, a beer mug.
I need to get on that, yeah.
Just for Sam.
For sure.
Yeah, I think we have a couple other people in the
full-on Stein, just big old lidded.
Oh, yeah. Now we're talking.
Yeah, limited edition. That'd be kind of nice. Having Juan and like a St. Pauli girl logo, and he's on the side. That'd be good. I'm all in. Absolutely. So since we last talked, a lot of things have happened. Channel's going well. Yeah. We've had some issues with a new ad from Apple's catching a little heat. The crushing thing. I didn't really understand.
They're already walking it back and doing their apology tour, and
God love it.
I guess that's good. So we'll see.
What is your feeling on that? I mean, it's like, do you think that it didn't seem out of bounds to me. I mean, I don't understand.
Oh, it totally was.
Yeah.
I'm on team. This was a terrible misstep from Apple. I'm on that side of the conversation. So
I just didn't. I haven't really seen it, so I haven't done the legwork. All I know is I did hear the news articles that there seemed to be a potential. Well, a lot of Hugh Grant, especially, that's a name I hadn't heard in a while. It was like one of these people was like, "Hey, man, this ad kind of is awful in a lot of ways."
Yeah.
So yeah. So I haven't actually seen it, so that's a shame.
I think it's best to form the opinions on watching it. A lot of people defending Apple out there going like, I don't see what the big deal is. And you're like, well, have you watched the commercial? Well, I don't watch commercials. Well, then I don't think your opinion counts, man. So here's my thing. I'm going to try and condense this because I've had numerous like long form conversations with folks on social media, and that always goes swimmingly. It's not just an advertisement. It's advertisement in the context of where Apple is right now as a company. So this is dark, grungy, industrial with like sort of almost analog horror, happy music playing behind a really dark, grungy, industrial look of utter destruction. And this is coming at a time where Apple is desperate to impress upon their shareholders that they're not losing the AI race.
Right.
So this isn't just, oh, the iPad can do all this cool artistic stuff. There are better ways to make a metaphor out of that. It's the iPad destroys. Apple is destroying all of this creative equipment to make an AI tablet. Because that's the big pitch. M4, it's all about AI. Apple's not losing AI. Apple has the bestest laptops for the AI. Whatever marketing they want to put out there, which is completely nonsensical, because we know Apple's behind on their AI strategy. So that's the tone. And this has come full circle from Apple rallying against IBM back in 1984. When IBM was the big winner, Apple's commercial was a dark, grungy, industrial aesthetic with a hot blonde running through it with a giant hammer to throw it into the face of Big Brother. Well, Apple has now gone full mask off because this ad is really meant to appease shareholders, not end users or consumers. We know who Apple really cares about. It's not the people that buy their products, it's the people that hold all the purse strings and invest in their company. So this is a rare mask off moment. You don't matter. Your artistic endeavor doesn't matter. We're Apple. We're not losing at AI. We've made this new AI tablet. And really, this is like a horrific misstep from their marketing department. This is maybe the biggest, dumbest mistake they've ever made in marketing their products. And I'm here to watch. I'm here to like pop some popcorn and sip the tea, because it's rare that Apple scores the own goal like this. There's a lot of us that criticize their executive leadership and their executive business decisions. Usually we don't have to, like, we usually have to work harder, I should say. Usually we don't get to just sit back and go,
this is the layup.
They burned their own bridges. That's awesome. Okay, well let's see how this plays out. Let's see how this goes for them, Cotton.
That's like they've always done well marketing normally, but yeah.
Well, and also too, any of their missteps or the things that were
What's a computer?
It's
like you shrug it off and you laugh.
Right, and anything they've done before, they've been able to shrug it off because they've been bulletproof, right? They basically, we can put anything out there. We don't have to put a lot of effort into it. Yeah, we can sidestep, we'll talk through it, PR spin it, whatever. It's not a big deal. And most of their, I would say most of their, probably their customers are kind of oblivious to it and really don't give a rip. They're like, I don't really care that this, I just want the apples and I want the things and I want the stuff. So this one's going to kind of land a little differently. And I need to go watch
artistic individuals who are concerned about the displacement and copyright issues with AI probably don't appreciate an Apple commercial that is like, hey, let's destroy all of the things that you use to create your art, and we can make AI stuff for people too. And that's pretty tone deaf. That's really tone deaf.
Which is especially interesting from a company that has for years been an artistic, a publishing powerhouse, right? If you had a marketing and publishing department, you had Macs. You didn't have Windows computers, right? It was all...
Yeah, I come out of commercial voiceover, and it's everything I can do to convince every voice actor coming up that you don't need a Mac to record audio, but everyone acts like, well, this is the computer for audio recording. And you're like, okay, I guess. So you could do that, but you don't have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people make it sound like you have to have a Mac if you're creative anyway, don't they? I don't know why.
It's interesting how, again, this is generational marketing. I'm purposely pointing out the 1984 commercial that aired during the 1984 Super Bowl. So this is 40 years of conditioning, of putting out a message. It's us versus them through the Mac versus PC era, through the Think Different era. And now Apple is the juggernaut. They're being investigated by the DOJ for anti-consumer business practices, anti-monopoly business practices, and they are closing in some markets, like smartphones, at the numbers of market share that would constitute monopoly. So this is not a good time for Apple to put out messaging that's dark and grungy and industrial and kind of dystopian. It's really not the time for them to be facing additional scrutiny, because they exist in that emotional space. It's been 4 generations of emotional appeals to being on the outside. We're the crazy ones, the misfits. You're not. You're the IBM of this era. You are the corporate overlord. You don't want people thinking about their next consumer electronics purchase. You just want them on autopilot, consuming whatever you put out next. So this is, I mean, again, it's just like a fail on all fronts. It's a fail in messaging. It's a fail in tone. It's a fail in reading the room. It's a fail in an inappropriate audience. And also just a total fail from their own business perspective of what gets people excited about buying a new tablet.
Yeah,
I just it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, they've already, like I said, done the hey, we're sorry, we didn't mean to, our bad. Sorry, dog. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Right?
Yeah, they're not sorry.
They're not sorry. At least, well, we'll see. But I mean, at some point, I guess do you see that we have these levels of things happen and it starts to tip the scales? Like it starts to really, what they're going to take one on the chin. It's just maybe the death of a thousand cuts. They're going to have all these little things, the DOJ thing, this marketing thing. And then people are going to start going, man, there's this, maybe this isn't such a feel-good purchase. Maybe there's a whole train load of other stuff that's behind buying this now, and maybe they question their next purchase.
I don't think we'll see any significant turn for Apple. I think, like what you're saying, it's going to be a sort of slower decrescendo. But I also feel Apple is going to be artificially propped up in North America for being the home team against those evil China brands.
Right.
So I think we're gonna xenophobically and jingoistically position Apple here in the United States as the preferred look for an American consumer against other labels in other countries and other companies. But
in America.
A little bit, right? We're gonna wear that on our shield, that Apple logo. But I also feel like how many of our family and friends, and I really mean this, not techies, not people who are more apt to want to play with something new just because it's new, not the people like us who are entertained by the technology and what we can do with the technology. Like, we'll talk chipsets and RAM and storage configurations and stuff like that. We're entertained by the tech before we've even done anything with the tech. I think instead, we're going to see increasingly yet more and more folks trying to increase the window of how long they run something, how long they own something. It's going to become a bigger badge of honor that, my phone's 6 years old. I went and got a new battery for it. I think we're going to start to see that sort of alongside. There are people who are still going to buy iPhones, sure. But increasingly, they're going to try and put off that iPhone purchase longer and longer and longer. And I think that's really what's going to hurt, especially once the EU delivers that replaceable battery mandate. Because that's really the component that people care about the most. Techies can sit here and try and say screens or cameras or radios or whatever it is that they care about. That's all BS. You go to every single one of your family and friends and you ask them, do you want 10% more compute power or would you want 20% lift to battery life? They're going to take battery life every single time. And every one of my family members, because most of my dad's family are on Apple, are on iPhone, iOS, and Macs. Every single one of them, I've planted that little seed. Like, oh, my uncle, he's on an iPhone 11. He loves his iPhone 11. He doesn't really want to have to go and buy a new phone. Well, Uncle Dan, you could just go and get your battery replaced. You take it to an Apple store. It's going to be like $100. They're going to pop in that battery, and it's going to be brand new. Are you doing anything on your phone that you need more compute power? Do you need to play graphics intense games? Are you doing anything like that? I mean, you barely use the camera. You've got like 50 photos in your photo roll and you bought that phone brand new.
Right.
Oh, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. I really do like this phone. I'm going to go take it to an Apple store. He's going to get 2 more years out of that phone with his use. Like,
it's very fair
keeping
point.
Keeping it out of a landfill, and he doesn't want to go and buy like another $800 phone to do the things he's already doing on his current phone. So that to me is going to be the shift that Apple faces, is when it's even easier to do that battery refresh, we have to expect the entire smartphone industry is going to take another downturn. It's not going to be huge, but it's going to be statistically significant enough that we know people are holding onto these things longer. And that was always the turn that I felt like when you made it difficult to replace the battery. Well, it's the apathy. I'm on a 2-year contract. Maybe I just need to get a new phone. That was all BS. All of these things should be running way longer. I'm writing up an article right now just revisiting the OnePlus 8 Pro because it just got its last software update.
Right.
That phone is a current modern smartphone. The OnePlus 8 Pro has all the tech that we expect on a premium tier device today. Yeah. It's not obsolete at all, and it's still ridiculous overkill for most average consumer needs. like it's a monster of a machine.
It's a beautiful
4
device.
years later. And it's still really pretty. Again, like what would be a pain point today is not, oh, well, the processor's slow. BS. What's a pain point today is that your battery would probably have degraded. And I would not want to pry open curved glass on both sides to try and replace that battery.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what my wife's run into. She's got, I think she has an iPhone, I think it's an 11 or 12. She loves the phone and all the hassle of like switching it over and getting, I even suggested, well, let's go ahead and, you can get a ridiculous, on that deal, you can trade it in. She doesn't, she keeps phones forever. And I noticed that her battery's always, I actually went to look at her battery health. It's like 72. It's bad because she charges all the time and she uses all the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I told her. I said, let's just go to an Apple store, replace the battery, and then you're good. She's like, I'd rather do that than go get a new phone. I don't care. This works perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's good.
And then she likes the phone. Physically, that's her jam. She likes it. Takes the pictures she likes.
So I'd say a large chunk of people that come into my store for upgrades say exactly that. They're only coming in because the battery's turned to poo. Yeah. Basically.
Or they don't understand that, oh, my phone's running so slow now. And then you go and you check the battery health and it's like 70%. You're like, well, I want to make the sale.
Well, I'll just go, the batteries degrade.
Right. And then you've got that situation where, like in Joe's situation, you being a good steward to that consumer by going, hey, you could probably just do this and or your company expects you to sell upgraded phones and devices and that kind of stuff. So it puts you in a real kind of awkward spot as opposed
we
to
we do recycle though, Sam. We do recycle.
That's good. That's good.
We do our bit.
And I do like the fact that, and I'm not huge on government regulation oversight when it comes to a lot of this stuff because sometimes they overreach a bit. But I did like the fact that the EU stepped in and really put the kibosh and made them go to a standard. Like they said, nope, we're done. So sometimes you need that because these companies need to get checked. And I think it's interesting that the DOJ is going after Apple, and I'm good for it. They should, because it's about time that these companies.
I appreciate that in our country's past, and especially in the EU's past, we've definitely seen overreach and abuse. Maybe unions were starting to become corrupt, or maybe government officials or regulators were an issue. But the pendulum has swung so far in the era of big tech that we are still struggling to come up with the framework for legal guidance on what a regulation should look like. So you can't tell me that like Apple is overregulated when they still like don't pay their taxes. They still don't completely contain the entire life cycle of their devices. They continue to put out products that break other standards that are accepted amongst the other tech companies. Like this to me is a perfect example of this. The pendulum needs to ease back a bit. We've gone through this era of letting tech do whatever tech wants to do. And now we don't have even the language to describe what the copyright issues of AI are. Right. We just have a bunch of angry artists going, hey, you basically ripped off my work. And then the companies say, oh, but not really. And then politicians go, but I guess both sides. And you're like, no, this is not how this works. Right. And it is fundamentally unsustainable and broken. Yeah.
Right, and you can't play the fence. I mean, it's just not going to work.
No.
There has to be, and like I said, I believe that at some point that pendulum can't keep hitting the walls. It's eventually it's got to start to kind of get to the center. And I'm all about trying to find something that's a little bit more common sense approach.
And let's be totally frank. At some point, if we do follow down a path where we're improving our regulatory oversight on broadband, like net neutrality regulations just getting voted back in by the FCC, if we actually hold businesses to the products and services that they advertise, like it is a controversy here, Sam, in the United States that an ISP can't just lie to you about the price of their service. So when you say you're against regulations, what you mean is you're for Comcast being able to say your internet service is $30 a month. And then you get a bill for like 60. But, you didn't ask about all the services and fees and all the other applied things and the installation and the rental and the equipment. And it should be, and no one should be allowed to tell us, because we're Comcast, no one should be allowed to tell us that we need to tell our customers that all those other fees are a part of your bill. That's where we're at. That's a controversy. That is a controversy with our elected officials, because we don't have any control over the market that taxpayers have ultimately funded. So I feel like it's a while before we need to be too precious or concerned about regulatory overreach. Yeah, we got a ways to walk some of this back.
Is it the same in the US, Sam? Like where you have a contract for 18 months, a price, but after that 18 months, it shoots up unless you upgrade. Is it the same in the US?
Well, I guess everything's a little different, but I know that you have locked in prices, right? And so obviously,
locked in prices.
Yeah, and obviously, every company kind of does it a little differently, but yeah, I mean, there are places.
Then it goes rolling, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think actually for my TV service, and honestly, if my wife and I don't watch a lot of television. I watch a little bit of sports here and there, and I used to watch the Cardinals, but God, they are so terrible lately. I cannot watch them anymore. They drive me crazy. Oh, Jesus, it's bad. But I don't watch a lot of television, so I would be okay with not having any kind of like satellite or cable TV service or anything like that.
Same.
My wife does. She is kind of a TV person, so that's cool. But even that, they all say, we can get you into a 3-year plan. Nah, I'm just going to pay a la carte. And then that way, in case it doesn't work for me, or I decide, you know what, we aren't really using the service as much, I'm not locked into a contract and I have to basically have a buyout. So if anytime I have a chance to do that, I do. Or if they say, well, the only way we can do it is with a contract, then I don't go with that service. I just no, I'm not. You're not giving my money. I'm just not. I'm going to speak with my wallet, and I'm not giving it to you.
I feel like it's okay for a business to offer an introductory rate and then raise prices after the introductory rate has finished. I think what a lot of people outside the United States don't understand is how our pricing is basically all lies. So we have an introductory rate. But the introductory rate isn't what you pay. You pay more than the introductory rate because of other fees and tacked on equipment rentals and everything else. And again, we have politicians fighting our FCC, the regulatory arm that's in control of this, and fighting the FTC, who also mandates certain consumer protections in our country. And both of those commissions are woefully underfunded. Like, they are hyper-reactionary. Only the worst of the worst transgressions are going to be investigated by the FCC and the FTC. And like I said before, this is controversial that we are making ISPs put a label on their product to say, this is exactly what you will pay for.
Should be clarity, definitely. It's wrong.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just can't believe that we have to fight about that. Like that's
that's bad.
It's really the fact that isn't such an obvious thing
that is such a slam dunk win for conservatives. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, and
like if anyone out there claims to be like, whatever, fiscally conservative, like, this is an easy layup. Everyone is on your side. No one likes Comcast. No one likes Spectrum. Some people kind of like Verizon, depending on what area you live in. But like, this one's easy, and this is controversial. So when you hear people in government saying the FCC is completely out of control and they're overstepping their reach, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about you putting a label on the box so you know exactly how much you're going to pay for. And that politician is saying gross overreach of regulatory authority. So we know that man goes home and puts on a nice comfy pair of clown shoes because he's an idiot. Any politician that's out there thumping a drum about, oh my gosh, the FCC, what a radical liberal organization, they want customers to know what they're going to pay for. Is a moron.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm okay with introductory rates. If hey, you're getting for the first 18 months, you're getting at $30, but then at the end of that rate, it's going to.
I think that is actually a fun way to compete, especially if you have services in one town where you can bounce back and forth and you can really apply those different rates. Awesome. That is not what we're talking about here in the United States. performance.
No, it just gets to a point where it's just stupid. So there was a question in the chat, and then from Mike.
Oh, right on.
Make sure we get. So he's asking about the thoughts on the 8A.
I should pull the chat up. You've been putting chat up, and I was still in our private chat.
No,
I'll follow the people talking to. Hello, everybody. I'm real good at interneting.
Yeah, who's asking about the 8A pricing with the base Model 8? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's are we kind of to the point where we're almost converged? Like, would you buy it? An 8A? Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on that whole 8A 8 thing?
I feel techies are really bad. And Team Vry, I don't mean to pick on the question, because I think the question is a very good question. I feel techies are really, really bad at moving the goalposts for whatever the perceived value might be. So like in Samsung reviews, you sort of take for granted trade-in deals and launch sales.
Okay, yeah.
And then you compare that against another company's full MSRP. But the full MSRP of a Pixel 8 versus a Pixel 8a makes perfect sense to me. The phones are similar enough, and you're making some minor compromises on the 8a, and the MSRPs are what, $200 difference?
Yeah, I think
I think
an 8 is what, $699 at full retail currently right now.
And then the 8a is $499, right?
Right. If you're talking about straight up, yeah.
Oh, but you can get the Pixel 8 on sale, and you're going to tell me you're never going to be able to get the Pixel 8a on sale?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to tell me that the Pixel 8a isn't going to be the phone that you often get for free on a lot of carriers?
I got my Pixel 8, I got it on swap for and this is the 256 right at $412, right? So so the used market's in play too. I think it's a little disingenuous. I think that argument kind of falls a little flat.
I feel like MSRPs are spot on. You've got two phones that have similar chipsets, but there are going to be differences in screen, in design, in build materials. Build materials cost money. I have been fighting this one since like the days of Windows RT tablets. The camera tech is going to be different. Like, it's pretty easy for me to conceptualize a $200 difference between those two phones at the tiers that Google has placed them. Now, in this exact moment, if I can get someone into a Pixel 8 for like $50 more than an 8A, I'm going to offer that up as an option. That's a great deal. But if I'm talking to that same person and we look up the Pixel 8 and they can get it for free, well, doesn't that sound a lot better for how close those two phones are in terms of performance? So to me, it's always problematic for our family and friends and for tech consumers that follow our channels and follow our discussions when we only kind of work a deal in one direction. I really took umbrage on this back in the LG days because it was like everyone was always comparing like Samsung sale price to like LG's full retail, and then I would go to B&H and the phone was like $200 and LG was $200 cheaper than the MSRP, and you're like, but wait a minute, this is actually a better deal if you're not buying it through a carrier. So what was all this pissing and moaning about LG's being too expensive? Like, we've always done this, and we've been really bad about calling it out as a trend. And so specifically coming back to Team Vry's point, when we're really talking about those two phones specifically, this is a wonderful opportunity for consumers because you've got 3 tiers of Pixel device and you can really fit the device that's going to meet your needs. And you've got a couple disruptors in this market too, where Samsung isn't getting it done at $500. OnePlus has got something really interesting, sub $500. So this is really all to the consumer's benefit. It really comes down to like what kind of price to performance, what kind of budget are you working with, and what kind of features do you most care about?
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, like I said, I find it interesting that if you're talking about a sale or whatever, and then I would say with the 8A, a lot of carriers, especially, probably going to offer people trying to get into the 8A, they want to move some of those units. So you might not get a deal on the 8, you might get the 8A for $10 a month or $8 a month or whatever. And in that case, then it's a no-brainer if you can't get the 8 for that price or free, right? Or even at $900, you might get into the 8A and be good there.
And I feel like people should correct me if I have the take on this wrong. I feel like part of the discussion is, well, these two phones are getting too close together. But that should work in both directions. If the phones are so similar and you can get an 8A on a really great deal, then that's almost like getting the 8 for cheaper, right?
Right.
But we're not framing it that way. We're framing it as like, oh, well, they're too close together, and look at the sale price that you can get on the 8. Why does the 8A even exist anymore? And you're like, well, it's still a lesser phone. It's still a less nice device. Whether or not you're putting value on those extra things that kind of perk up or spruce up a phone and make it a little nicer, that's different. But I mean, I've been in like threads and in social media conversations where it's like, well, I mean, like, besides the bezels, the screen, and the cameras, and the build material, they're practically the same. And you're like, those are big differences for you to just be like kind of casually shrugging them off.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like, the car is the same except it's got a different engine.
Different transmission, different suspension.
Yeah, this has analog gauges. This one's all digital, but they're practically the same car.
They both have 4 wheels and a steering wheel. You know what I'm saying?
No,
they're practically the same.
They're practically not.
They're both Toyotas. You know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, I always balk a little bit at the value discussion when it comes to phones because remember, these.
Oh yeah.
And they're just like,
where's mine?
Well, this phone now. Okay, this is what I always tell people. This phone now, you can get probably on the used market. Yeah, I know it's so smooth. Although he doesn't have he doesn't have an extreme skin on it. I do because
I do still on my on my one. Hold on.
Oh, he's got the notepad, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The composition notebook.
That is such a slick look. I always love that, and it's so nice. And you got But here's the funny thing. It's like, okay, well now, remember, well that phone, if I could pick that phone up for like $400 or $500, I'd get that thing in a heartbeat. Well, it's $300. Are you getting it? Well, they're not supporting it anymore. And they're like, no, that wasn't the argument.
No. Yeah, we're saying.
Yeah. And again, it's like it's one of those things where, the other day I went to get my car serviced, and it's an Acura dealership. Ironically, I bought my Ford Mustang and an Acura because it was used. Anyway, so they do oil change. So I go in, and at the end of the row is an Acura NSX, a brand new one, and it's a $190,000 car. And I go, hey, you know what? I'll trade you straight. I'll throw it in $10,000. You can just go ahead. If you can't move that NSX, I'll totally take it. Right? I can do it. So they're like, no, not really.
Okay.
So I'm walking around, and so I'm just looking at, and they have the Integra S spec. Right? It's a manual. So I'm all in. It's $52,000. I'm like, okay. So what does that mean that car is worth $52,000? I'm not buying it for $52,000. But to tell somebody else that car isn't worth it, or if you spend that money, you're a moron, it's disingenuous, and I hate that argument. Buy the phones you want if your budget, if you're into foldables, and which I was going to ask you about it in a minute because we're on that next level of foldables, right? We're into the Pixel Fold 2 or whatever they're going to call it, the Ultra Fold, whatever, and now the One Plus. I just don't like that argument. It's like if it's valuable to you, that's fine. Personally, I wouldn't spend $50,000 on any car, much less a sports car, right? It's just not in my budget, and I don't want to spend the money. However, I just don't like that argument generally in tech, where it's like, well, the Duo's cool, it's just too expensive. I'm like, well, yeah, it is,
but is it?
Is it really?
Not. I bought 2 of them. Like, I think I'm doing okay. No, I feel like it's also just the laziest hack reviewing talking point. Like, it's really easy to put yourself up on some kind of learned pedestal and then say things to an audience like, it should have been cheaper. Because everyone wants amazing technology at cheaper prices. It makes you sound like you're really on the pulse of the consumer market.
Right.
But then you again, I'm revisiting the OnePlus 8 Pro. The OnePlus 8 Pro is a phone that very closely predicted what a modern premium tier phone is today. All of the things on that phone are sort of like the proto versions of what we just take for granted on a premium tier device 4 years later. Yeah. But at the time, OnePlus making a pro device, OnePlus is a budget label, a flagship killer label. They should not be making actual flagships. They should be making flagship killers. And then I come back to this phone and you're like, oh no, actually they nailed it. They completely predicted it. There are things on the OnePlus 8 Pro that are still outpacing Galaxy S24 Pluses and iPhone Pluses, not the iPhone Pros, but the iPhone Pluses. You're like, no, this was cheaper, and it still had better technology, and it was ahead of the curve. So I've always kind of rolled my eyes to the point of dislocating eyeballs in my sockets whenever, like, one of the big criticisms is someone going out there to try and affix some type of value, and the big witty comment that they have is it should have been cheaper, and but you can't conceptualize why. If you're telling me you review $1,000, $1,200, $1,400 phones, and you're talking about average consumers, then you're a moron. Then you're an idiot. Because an average consumer experience is now $400, and that's for a really nice, upper level, daily driver, great battery life, huge horsepower kind of communicator in your pocket. So you can miss me with anyone that's trying to affix some kind of quality to price ratio right now.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that the fact that people kind of hated on the OnePlus 8 and Plus 9. That was the OnePlus lost its way days, right?
I really wanted the 8 Pro.
Dude, I had the
I really wanted
the 9, and it was a pretty baller device.
I still think OnePlus 9 Pro, I think, is still peak OnePlus. I know a lot of people loved the 7, and it had the novelty of the pop-up selfie, and there was no disruption in the screen. I love an all-screen device, no hole punch or notch or whatever. But genuinely, in features to performance to price, I don't think OnePlus has ever topped the OnePlus 9 Pro. My SIM card is in the OnePlus 12. It's a beast. It's a monster.
Yeah.
And I like that case. I really like that. I need to get I just have the very first cheap bumper case that I could get on Amazon because I was buying it while the phone was still under embargo. It's awful.
Okay, the first one on the list, I'll just buy. I don't buy now.
Yeah, exactly. I just needed a case.
Where's it from?
It's right over here.
Quick.
I don't care. Yeah, it's all good.
One of these like gnarly cornered bumper plastic. It's already yellowing.
Oh, I know.
It's so gross.
Yellow, just that the extra, the big fat
lumps.
I cannot. It drives me fruit. Yeah, but it looks like Juan's like, fine. Like I don't care. Just
it is
ships. Whatever ships.
Purely functional. It is the ugliest case, but it was $7, so I'm just stuck with it. But I need to get that's not the Rinky. Which one do you have? Is it Urban Armor?
This is the Rinky.
It is the Rinky. Oh yeah. I need to get that one.
Those little corner notches. And
those little corner things in.
And I'm kind of like, I have had a Rinky case before, and I really liked it, and I was like,
It's beautiful.
I don't like. Well, here's the thing. I don't like the aesthetic of those. Like, again, it's weird, right? It's like the corner thing.
It's just
those things coming into the blocking.
I like that.
It's nice.
It's okay. Yeah, I like. I tell you, the one I have.
No, I also need to get that because of the way that it kind of gives a little bit more lip around the curve on the glass on the front. Because I am the guy who, hey, there's a cool bug. My wife and I, our family, we went out on a 4-mile hike this morning for Mother's Day. My wife was like, we're going out into nature, and there's a cool bug. So I'm jamming my phone in the dirt to get a ground level macro shot of this cool looking bug. My case is insufficient for that kind of lifestyle out in nature kind of use.
Ew, it's not, it's, yeah. And then, or you could be like me and just go raw dog at it. Whoop. And like I said,
the macro's brilliant on this phone. On that point.
It's so good.
It's really
it's
good.
Interesting because I know a lot of people, they seem to be kind of.
The telephoto is just so good. I'm living out of that telephoto camera.
Right,
I love it.
Interesting. On the OnePlus 12, they were like people. The first kind of like, I guess, as the first device came out, they were kind of meh on the phone, right? As far as the camera, I saw some reports. They're like, eh. But as I've seen it now, people have kind of gotten hands on it, and people who are a little bit more capable with getting shots, they're turning into this. And the OnePlus 12 has become really kind of a beast of a camera device, and it's like
the telephoto is fantastic. Honestly, I love the 3X.
Even
the 6X,
so good.
Do you think that OnePlus has turned the corner? Like, are you looking forward to? Because I know they had
I am.
10 and 11 were kind of.
So here's my thing. OnePlus has never been one company, but in terms of I was speaking with OnePlus executives while I was at Pocket Now, and the thing they kept bringing up was like, yeah, we know we're behind in the camera tech race. And this was probably around OnePlus 3T. Because at that time we had that brilliant, you had the OnePlus 3T, you had the Axon 7, and you had the Honor 8. And you had $400 phones that each had like incredible, unique features. For Honor 8, stills photography was incredible. For the Axon 7, it was an audio monster. And the OnePlus 3T was sort of the performance, the hot rod, gaming lifestyle champion. So during that time, we got a lot of those conversations, and I liked the cameras. OnePlus was well ahead of the curve on things like stacked imaging for low light. Before Pixels did it, OnePlus had an HD mode that did a stacked HD low light shot. You had to hold still for a really long time, but it could do it. I feel OnePlus turned on the OnePlus 8 Pro. The image sensor in the main camera image sensor in the OnePlus 8 Pro is the same size as the image sensor in the OnePlus 12. Right. So the sensor is better in the OnePlus 12, but if you care about composition and depth of field and your bokeh, they're very similar over 4 years. The aesthetics of what make a photo look like a photograph have not changed dramatically. So for people who are like, oh, well, OnePlus is finally good, that means they're Can I swear on your podcast?
Please do. Please do.
They're miserable fucking photographers, and you should believe them that they are terrible at photography if they've been panning OnePlus cameras during the OnePlus 8 and beyond years, because that's where we got the big ones. That's also where I still hold up the OnePlus 9 Pro as being the GOAT. That's where we got that huge ultra wide. We had a reasonably good telephoto. We had 8K video. We had 4K at 120 frames per second. Like, that thing is a monster. Even today, there are features on that that are only matched by the most expensive Sonys. The OnePlus 9 Pro was incredible, and if you slept on it, you really missed out on something special. If you went Samsung, you got a mediocre experience at the same price. It is not good. You had to spend more to get a better experience than a OnePlus 9 Pro. And there are things the OnePlus 9 Pro can do that only just now the Galaxy S24 Ultra is just catching up to.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree with Scoop. The 3T was back in the day.
3T was awesome. But just think how spoiled we were. Those three phones in the mid-ranger segment were absolute monsters. I mean, I remember like the Axon 7 was a Snapdragon 821, and I had that in my Daydream headset doing VR gaming. Like, we didn't know how good we had it because those phones were incredible. But sorry, short story incredibly.
No, I mean, I remember I remember you reviewing that phone and going, dude, I wanted one just because of the sound and the fact that the way you reviewed it. I'm like, dude, I got to get one of these Axon 7s, and I never got around to getting one. But that was another.
I've got it right there.
And to me, that was the
it's just out of reach
to the HTC One M8, which has always been
totally
a near and dear phone. And actually, at one point, I had a One M8 for Android and a One M8 for Windows. And I was
of course, you had the Windows one as well.
Oh yeah,
dude, I'm
you had to. Mandatory.
There might be you can find another Windows phone evangelist more than me. Good luck finding them, because I mean, I would if they could even 70% viable, right? I would use a Windows phone right now, without fail, without a doubt. And that's the way it is. And I know,
but kind of taking it back to the OnePlus 12 is thankfully I think we've seen. The OnePlus 12 came out, and I think everyone's just always in a rush to compare the best of one company against the best of another. And that's incorrect. Because the OnePlus 12 exists at a price where it should be going up against an iPhone Plus, not an iPhone Pro. And it exists in a market where it's absolutely embarrassing a Galaxy S24 Plus. And to really be competitive against a OnePlus 12 in terms of like photography and battery life and charging and screen technologies, you've got to go up to an Ultra. Well, that's not the same price. That is not the comparable market position. And so I think from the launch, there was a lot of buzz around OnePlus because we just got in the open. The 11 was a pivot. And I don't think, I think if we're going to criticize OnePlus, the thing that we absolutely need to tag them on is messaging, because they're really bad. They're very bad at explaining what's going on with their products. And I think they're trying to get us on a more international branding style So we used to have like the OnePlus 10 Pro and the OnePlus 10T. And this year we got the OnePlus 12, which is really a successor to the 10 Pro. And then we got an R, which is not a successor to the T. It is a different kind of phone.
It's what they picked it up because the R was the Indian market. They've kind of they've leveraged that.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, do you think that's more of a BBK thing or specifically with OnePlus? Because it seems like there are other phones
I don't know.
that messaging isn't as disconnected. I mean, and I don't know. I don't live in mainland China, so maybe it's different. Obviously. I'm just curious.
I feel like the BBK umbrella, I think, is properly done. So Oppo and Vivo are now they're no longer cousins. I don't think they operate under one unified umbrella where they could kind of pick from parts under different labels. But for me, Oppo seems to be treating the OnePlus label as their last toehold in North America. And it's whatever it needs to be for that region. So OnePlus in India is a very different experience than OnePlus America. And there isn't one unified OnePlus style experience. To me, it's kind of like Xiaomi and Poco. It's there is a OnePlus design language and a OnePlus experience, but Oppo just kind of uses that label to fulfill whatever that regional demand might be. Right. So I feel like, I'm still just really happy that they haven't decided to leave North America. But I'll be curious to see over the next couple of years if they're able to build a customer base here organically again and not be playing ball with United States carriers. So I don't know that it's a guarantee that we'll have OnePlus over the next 5 years, right? They could exit this region too if circumstances change.
I think they have to hit carriers for me.
Well, they tried, but like I said, and I think, and to Juan's earlier point, I think the ongoing issue with China and the United States' posture, because
China bad, right?
Yeah, we're now. We stepped into more of it right now. So like we're talking about, there was talk today about a complete, more Huawei ban on other. So there, you would have thought under a Biden administration that was the Orange Wonder's problem, right? That was his. He was the. I don't like the China. I don't
China.
Like China. You can have your Huawei. We don't like Huawei. I make the best Huawei. You thought after a Biden administration they would walk that back, but they just leaned all into the Huawei ban like that. I thought that was going to okay, well that was him and that's his approach.
Well, it's been interesting to see because but it's been interesting to see because this is something that I think has kind of existed beyond one presidential administration. Is we've been in an escalating situation with China economically over the last 10 years. And we seem to go after China harder shortly after they've put in stricter regulations and penalties on American companies. And then they go, oh, well, now you're coming down on us harder, so we're going to put even more restrictions on American companies, and we're going to deal with IP in a different way. And America we're really precious about our IP and our gaming and our media and our movies and stuff. And are you going after gaming companies now? Well, now we've got to go after your social media. Oh, did you go after our social media? Well, now we've got to go after Apple. Did you go after Apple? Well, now we're going to make sure that Qualcomm can't sell chips to Huawei anymore. And it's just this really petty political tit for tat that we're not really in a great position to be dictating terms to China, but we're still trying to hold we're some kind of international authority on how tech should work when we basically given China all of our manufacturing. So it's a really dumb position to be negotiating in this fashion from, and it's not sustainable. But as also kind of goes back to earlier why I said that's one of the reasons why I feel like there's almost this kind of jingoistic culty feel behind Apple here in North America. Is because they'll be the shield of privacy and security that will protect us from those evil Chinese-made devices that are trying to scare everybody, when that's not really the truth of the situation. It's all just marketing.
Well, and are you ready for I/O? Brad's one.
Quick pivot. I'll be curious to see the developer stuff. I'm really anxious to see if Google's going to talk at all about AR because Apple's mixed reality headset flopped. I'm going to be really curious to see if what they have to say on the silicon side, because we're nearing the end of Google's exclusivity arrangement with Samsung, and we know they're also starting to make their own server chips. So they want to make their own silicon for servers and data centers and AI. I mean, there's a lot of really deep in the weeds nerdy stuff that won't be a part of the Google I/O keynote, but is going to be fundamental to how we live technology over the next 2 years. That to me is what I'm really interested in seeing, is if Google is going to start promoting and presenting some of that. It should be really interesting to see.
Absolutely, and it's interesting to see because I haven't had a chance to use the Apple Mix VR, but I'll say I did get a chance for years ago for about half an hour to use a HoloLens, and I thought that thing was wild. That was, to me, that because he had both, right? I think you had, you had your consumer stuff where you could like look at things and stuff on the wall and look up here, but it also had an enterprise bend, right? So it kind of hit both. I thought Microsoft did a pretty good job. I think it was a little heavy, right? And again, it was a prototype and it was still, but I thought they did a good job of, it wasn't just all enterprise and it wasn't just all consumer, right? It really kind of, it was cool using it and having like Outlook and looking at and putting Outlook on the wall and then looking over here and you look over here, you saw Netflix, and then, you get somebody had a message, right? You get a Teams message, you look over and you respond to your Teams message and you can just kind of move over here and you can pull it off. Dude, I had a chance to use one and it was mind blowing. That was, I think it was like 6 years ago. It was really cool. So I never had a chance to. I think AR, is
people forget there's a 7-year window between HoloLens and Apple's mixed reality headset, and there are still things about HoloLens that are more futuristic than Apple's solution. But really, I feel like the consumer side of this conversation, why I'm anxious, is because Google dropped Project Iris. So 2 years ago, we had an I/O where they showed sleek, daily wearable glasses that looked good, doing things like real-time language translation. And Google got rid of that project to appease Samsung, because Samsung was building a more VR-style headset, kind of like what we saw from Apple. And so Google abandoned one of what I feel is one of the most ignored consumer markets. I want a smartwatch at eye level. I want a good daily wearable, looks good, comfortable to wear, simple heads-up display. And I think we've seen you can put tech on someone's face if you've got like Ray-Bans with Meta. Like, people seem to think that that's cool, and it's got a camera in it, so obviously we're real concerned about glass holes and privacy, right? So we can totally do this, and we keep ignoring what the next accessible step is for a visual system. And it's driving me nuts. Like, I've got the Ray Neos over here, and like they're trying so hard to impress with AR and spatial and look at all this like fancy computing and tracking. And let me put these on my face for you because they look awful. They're uncomfortable to wear. They get like minutes of battery life. And like who's gonna like wear this?
Dude,
like,
you look like Logic right now. That is awesome.
this is terrible. And we've had so many.
Like, man, that looks
I can't. This is not where we should be going.
Joe, you could do that. You could do that, Joe.
No, they're too big.
No. I mean, if you look at Joe's haircut right now, Joe is looking way too dapper to ever put something like this on his face.
I mean, I feel so bad. I love Joe being, and after this is now our fourth season. I love working with Joe, and we talk offline and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but he's really making you look schlubby, dude. You got to step up your game. Joe's looking sharp right now.
He comes looking like wearing like a nice cardigan like thing, and I look like Joe shit the ragman, right? I look like a terrible human being, right? And so
you're being too kind, Sam. Being too kind.
And me, I'm just like,
no, Joe. Sam's spot on. Sam's looking rough.
I mean, he's got a good shirt on at least.
Yeah, it's okay.
You've done laundry recently for a change.
You're gonna like wash dishes too? It's gonna be. Anyways, Joe, I think we for season 4, we decided to introduce a new idea, and Joe, I think Yeah, so we got Juan on. This is you are.
Yeah, it's a quick fire round, right? Quick fire round. It's going to be very random. Okay, I warn you in advance.
Let's go.
Okay.
So when you say quick fire, though, what is my expectation? Is this like single word answers, or like am I explaining stuff?
I'm going to leave that up to you. So if you feel you want to explain, then by all means explain.
Yeah, some of them might.
I'm going to leave that up to you, Juan.
But if you want to give more context to the answer, we don't know what the hell.
It's allowed. It's allowed.
Yeah.
Right. Pepsi or Coca-Cola? Pepsi or Coca-Cola? Okay, that's an easy one. I would say the same.
Especially for my people, Mexican Coke. Absolutely, sugarcane cola. Okay.
Star Wars or Trek?
Oh, Trek, definitely.
Okay. Netflix or Amazon Prime?
I'm gonna say Netflix.
I was gonna say,
but I'm not thrilled by right now. So, if you'd allow me the nada answer, I'd say Plex.
Okay. Yeah, Plex.
Fair. You can take the audible. That's fair.
Okay, I'm right. That is me like abdicating. Okay, I fail.
Yeah, fuck your answer. I'm going with my stuff. Yeah,
right.
You can say
okay.
AI on device or cloud?
Oh, on device. Yeah, for
definitely. Sure. Yeah. Windows on ARM, yay or nay?
Oh, huge yay. It's been amazing. Yeah, for sure. Big fan, and I'm really excited for new hardware. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too. Big time. Sega or Nintendo?
I saw these questions earlier, so I'm answering in my mind. I'm not going to actually answer because this is for the guest.
Yeah, just between those two, I'm going to say Nintendo. I feel like I've had better experiences over Nintendo, but the reality of what I'm doing now is all PC. Yeah. My poor daughter is not growing up with a Switch, and she feels so ostracized from some of her friends.
I will tell you though, hardcore. I know it didn't land well in the United States, but Dreamcast, dude, near and dear to
my Dreamcast was great.
It was a good console.
But I have an entire lifetime from the original NES through the Super Nintendo and N64, like just an entire lifetime of incredible memories, and it does actually hurt my soul. I was at Newegg, so this was like pre-pandemic, going, you know what? I really like the idea of the Switch, but I'm going to hold off and wait until we get like a refresh, like a good, more powerful Switch. That was like 6 years ago. Like, we're still saying like maybe the next Switch will launch in 2025.
Yeah, that was the awesome day. It launched on September 9th, 1999.
Heck yeah!
Dude, I still got my Dreamcast now. I actually have two of them. I'm
so good.
I love Nintendo, but Sega.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, it blew my mind. It was awesome.
All right.
So I stuck with the gaming for number 7. It's PlayStation or Xbox.
I don't even know where this is gonna go.
PC? No PC. PC.
That's fair enough.
I have a Steam Deck.
Well, I mean, I would say I was honestly everybody who knows me is I'm a Microsoft guy. They would automatically assume Xbox, but I've always been a PlayStation dude. And what's going on with Xbox lately? I don't know, man. It looks. And you know what, LaShawn, you can go fuck yourself. I love you. I love you.
Little PCs.
I love you. This coming from a place of love. I love LaShawn, but he can fuck right off with that bullshit. I love you. Anyway. I'm saying in PlayStation, but yeah, I agree.
So we were a PlayStation family because my wife works for a video game publisher. We were a PlayStation family because my wife didn't want to get Kinect. She didn't back in the day. She didn't want cameras and microphones always listening in our living room. Gotcha. And we've had great experiences through PS4 Pro, but we never jumped on PS5. And then I built another mini PC that could take a dedicated GPU. So I've got a Core i9 with a 2080 Ti behind my TV, which is ridiculous overkill for the kinds of games we like to play. But now that just lives behind our TV, and we've been good. So unfortunately, like, I think my family is now kind of off the console train proper. Like, I think from here on, it's just so easy. Like, I was holding this up. I'm not joking. This is like a little laptop chip. and it's in like a cute little like palm-sized PC.
Is that
and
a Pi, or is it just an actually full blown?
No. This is a Ryzen 9.
Ryzen 9. Okay.
It's a Ryzen 9, and the GPU on that is a Radeon 780M. It's good. I'm playing Control in medium graphics at 30 frames per second, and it is so much smaller than a PlayStation 5.
Much
so.
smaller.
I kind of feel like that's kind of where we're just gonna be from now on. And unfortunately, my daughter won't get to play as much Mario Kart, but that's just the compromise we're gonna need to make.
Well,
emulation,
like,
emulation, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. or just, we're not gonna tell her. So, all right, we got a couple more questions. Go, Joe.
Yep. Xiaomi, Vivo, or Oppo?
Right now, Vivo.
Vivo, yeah.
I would say
They're looking
Oppo,
good at the
but,
moment.
I haven't had a chance to ever use a Vivo device. I would say Oppo for me, but I'd like to get a Vivo if I can.
So Oppo, Vivo, and Xiaomi right now are destroying mobile photography. They are crushing right now, and I'm making a very specific kind of choice. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those three. If you really say you care about like mobile photography and you believe your phone can be more than just a terrible Instagram point and shoot kind of camera, it's those three. Everyone else is a second place to those three right now.
Gotcha.
Did I just see what Peter put on the screen there? Bovril or gravy? Yeah. That's not part of it, but what would be your answer there?
I don't think he's ever had Bovril. I'm still trying to get a hold of it, and so
I don't know what Bovril is.
It's
so
we need to make it big in the US. It's our goal, Sam, isn't it, this year?
But describe what is Bovril?
It's
like beef tea.
It's like beef tea. So think of like you drinking beef
gravy
or beef bouillon, a little
okay.
Heavy. Like
as like a sauce, or as like a standalone?
No, as a drink.
As a drink.
Oh,
like a coffee.
As a drink, yeah. Bovril's a nice hot drink. Like drinking gravy.
So
I'm told about this Bovril stuff, and I'm trying to find. There's actually in an area where there's a little lady from the UK who owns a little British shop, and they got like literally all the shit. Right.
Sam, I reached out to her. She ain't got back to me yet. I asked if she's got Bovril there, but she hasn't got back to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'll do another one of my obnoxious tangents and not answer that question. But as you can hear, I'm a little like my voice is just rough. I've done way too much talking over the last week, and one of my favorite things to do is you say like, oh, gargle with salt water, it gives you like a little relief. And a lot of people will also say like, oh, chicken soup. But I like to just take boiling hot water and put in a little of the chicken ramen flavoring, and I'll drink that like a tea, and it's salty. It's so salty. And it's just
9 million. I think it's 9 milligrams of sodium.
Oh, it's over 9,000.
I have all the sodiums.
So I can definitely, but it's so soothing to kind of sip on that. So while I made a face, and people will probably make fun of me for making a face about Bovril, actually now I kind of think about it, I do kind of get it, because like a good chicken broth is sort of a delicious beverage on its own. So I kind of get it. I don't know why beef wigs me out, but I'm fine with chicken. So it's not fair of me to make a face.
Right. It's like, from what I've understood, is Bovril's like if it's a real cold, like a rainy
cold
camp.
Yeah.
Say less.
You're at a football pitch and you're
chanting, I get it.
Everybody
I can get it.
Fucking hammers it. Yeah, like like this could be a good camping. That's why I want to try it out. So I'm on the boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
You brought me all the way around. I'm all the way back. I'm good. So
he's on the Bovril train. He's on there. Right. Peter's brought me onto the next one actually quite nicely because it's sweet or savoury.
Savoury. Salt. All the salt. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm savoury as well.
When I have sweet, I put salt on it. So
I spread the salt on the sweet.
Okay.
Because savoury.
Dark chocolate, you get that bitter, you get that cacao, you get caramel. So it's not a sugary flavor, and then you cover that in sea salt, and I'm on board.
Yeah,
I'm feeling it. I've always been saying, like, when I was a kid, there's a place called Greg's, right? You can get cakes or sausage rolls or a pasty. Well, I would always get a pasty or sausage roll And my sister used to get cakes. I was
A
always
good
savory.
sausage roll, dude. So,
Yeah.
like, we've talked about this before, and we've talked about pizza and burgers and stuff like that. But my wife and I, we were just saying the universal seems to be the empanada. Every culture has folded pastry with meat in it, and that's always the right answer. It could
It's
be
always,
Indian,
yeah.
it could be British, it could be Canadian, it could be Native American. We've got fry breads that are very similar to that. It's like that should be our universal together. Like, you know, I feel like we could solve so many of the world's ills.
It's
It
wholesome.
doesn't have any meat in it, but
yeah.
pierogies, oh, dude, I will forget it. Oh,
Amazing.
get it in my
Amazing.
mouth. This stuff's awesome. And you know, and Sean, before you get me pause about get in my mouth, I already know where you're going. You dirty bastard. Just I already know where it's gonna go. And
Well, I mean, some people are down for like a little in and out action, but maybe you just need 5 guys in your mouth, you know, or a big old greasy bag of dicks. That's good times.
yeah, all the dicks, right? Yeah. Actually,
See, this
flautas.
segment's just.
Don't forget the flautas too. Those are pretty
It's
Those are all burgers. That's the joke.
good. Right. Thanks for playing, you silly bitches. No.
Jokes are always better when you need to explain them, right? Because then you're
Sam
like,
was
ah,
hoping
see, I know something. It's a
Sam was
reference.
hoping you weren't talking about burgers, but we move on.
Yeah. So what? Last one. We got red pill, blue pill.
Yep. Red pill or blue pill?
Can I just say I really loved Matrix 4 as a giant fuck off to the people that had misappropriated terms like red pill.
Yeah.
It's not a good movie, but it's an amazing piece of art from people who made the Matrix films to then comment on how all of the tropes of their movies had been taken by awful people. You know what? Like, there's something so
hijacked. It's
Yeah.
hijacked. It's
totally. Yeah. And they hijacked it back in a completely like fundamentally unwatchable kind of cinema experience. Like, it's not a good movie. You know, if it is down to the original, I would fancy myself the person who would not want to live in the simulation, and I would want to know what the reality of my existence really was. So no, I'm not Cypher eating a steak convinced that the zeros and ones taste delicious. So I guess that's the pill I'd take, but it's such a loaded term now. It makes me sad because it's just a damn good movie. And for all the people that like, oh, you're talking about politics because there was a woman in my video game, like, that's the problem when other people are like, they're talking about politics too. They just think everyone agrees with them. So
and the Matrix Force was a bad movie. We all agree. However, it was a good.
Oh yeah. It was an incredible fuck off to the studio. And if you can't appreciate artists saying, no, you're not going to turn my franchise into another terrible retread reboot, and I guess you liked the Star Wars sequels, then we're speaking different languages. Right. I appreciate the artist having input on their property and saying, we're going to tell people the bullshit that you tried to do to the Matrix. And this is it. And then they made it. And it's kind of amazing that they did.
So the only thing
I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the only thing I want to add
Enough.
is, and you're in St. Louis, the big question is always, where did you go to high school? That's a big St. Louis thing, right? Because and the reason why it is in St. Louis, and I don't understand, I want to explain for people who don't give a shit. So here's my 2 minutes. So in St. Louis, where you went to high school is more indicative of your social class, because that's in St. Louis, we have like private schools, and then we have like nicer areas in St. Louis County, right? So in St. Louis, when we ask where did you go to high school, it isn't really we care necessarily about where you went to high school or secondary school if you're in the UK, right? It's more about it identifies where you are on the social strata, right? If you went to a real nice private school, then you're clearly, as opposed to like an inner city school. So I guess my question is, Juan, where did you go to high school? That's a St. Louis thing. I know nobody gives a shit. The other thing is, well, I do. And the second thing is, when Juan was like a junior or a sophomore in high school, like, what did you think your life was going to be like in your 30s and 40s? Did you think you were going to be married? You wanted, like, I always ask this question because, one, the where'd you go to high school is a St. Louis thing, and I'm totally here for that because that's just a thing, right? Also, deep dish is fail. cracker crust. So we're clear. Although I do like me
All right.
some Giordano's. But I'm curious, like, what did sophomore Juan at 14, like, what was he thinking about? Not like what you
So
wanted to be when you grow up, but like, where would you be at 40, like, in your life?
this is a very long question.
Okay.
It is a very long answer, so I'm not going to go deep. But
No, that's fine.
sophomore in high school, Juan started in Dayton, Ohio, and he was the freshman and sophomore class president. He was highly engaged in the Boy Scouts. I was finishing up my Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
I was kind of on a career path where I probably was seriously considering intelligence work. So I had scored well.
Like in Ministry of Magic intelligence, or just kind of like
Fielding calls from the Air Force about again, it's a part of a longer story. But my dad was Air Force, and we moved halfway through my sophomore year, and we moved from Dayton, Ohio to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I went from a place that had sort of a great the school I was in Dayton was the main school that fielded all the military kids. So we were separate from some of the more, I mean, for lack of a better term, some of the more racist areas of Ohio. We were this little bubble because you had to encounter people who were different than you.
right.
I went to, as a freshman class president, I went to one of these like student government meetings. And I remember, because again, I'd pass. At the time I was going by JC. I wasn't going by Juan, because we had these conversations with my parents about where we were going to move and where we were going to live. And I remember this sophomore, she came up to me and she was like, I just don't know how you do it. And I like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, sometimes when people move into our neighborhood, we just let them know that they'd probably be happier if they lived somewhere else. And you're like, oh, you mean like black people?
Yeah.
Oh, because the black population at my high school in Dayton, Ohio was like 5%. And that was enough for her to be like concerned about the demographic in this school. So then I moved down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Oh, sorry, the school that I was in, I really feel was an incredible example of that, like Friday Night Lights. You could talk shit about all the people in the school, but then when another school was here, we had your back. We were doing like pep rallies and like bonfires, and like they took all of that shit seriously. So as a freshman class president, I started initiatives that helped like the on-school daycare for teenage moms. Like I was empowered to contribute to that school as a student government leader. We could fundraise, we could do anything that we wanted, and it could impact the function of that school. So then I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and unfortunately my home state currently I think is ranked 50th. Albuquerque public schools are not in great shape, and ranked 50th in the country.
Arkansas and probably Arkansas and New Mexico.
There are years where like the phrase "we're not Mississippi" is like a banner year, but right now I don't think they're doing so hot. Right. And unfortunately, I moved to an area, and my parents sent me to a school that was kind of on the decline. It was a school that had once been sort of in the nicer area of town, but then that kind of shifted away as wealthier people went more up the mountain. This school kind of,
like in St. Louis, they kind of went out of the St. Louis area. They went into the suburbs, and
it was already a suburb. I mean, I was still in a nice area, but the richer you were, you even left that area in New Mexico. New Mexico is low population, but humongously spread out. Right. And unfortunately, this school, there was like no school spirit. It was not cool to be into anything. It was not fun. I looked into like the student government was basically just there to do like bake sales. Like there was nothing. You had no participation or authority, or you couldn't change anything. I got into fights with faculty where people would just like yell in my face. You would not amount to anything. And at the same time, we had all this access to things like the labs. So my junior year of high school, I published a paper on hardened electronics by using the supercomputer clusters at Los Alamos National Labs. Like,
Wow.
and at the same time, I had guidance counselors that were like, well, I don't know. I mean, like, you might go to college, you might not. And you're like, there's a disconnect here because you don't seem to know my resume. And I walked in here for guidance, and you're saying like, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could go to UNM. A lot of people are going to go there.
I have receipts, you know what I'm saying?
But no, that wasn't it. So I kind of went from someone who I like, if I had stayed on the track that I was on in Ohio, I've always been politically active, and you know, I've always been sort of I've always looked at communities and thought, how can I make this community better? Like right now in the little suburb that we're in, I saw a group of people just doing volunteer work, revarnishing the fences out along the horse trails, and like I had to stop the car. Who are you, and how do I become a part of your club? Because I would love to like keep my neighborhood looking nice and looking clean, and I'm sure you guys are doing fundraising. How can I help? Like, that's always just been a part of how my parents raised us, but it's also that desperate need to belong, because every 4 years we'd move. And it's like, that's how we would make friends. That's how we would meet people in our communities. Like, I can't turn that off. That's just been burned into my brain.
That level of engagement. You have to get in and get into the weeds, right? You have to, because...
And we're still catching up, even years after the pandemic. We're still catching up to our neighborhood. Like, we're still exploring and finding new things. Like, it's taken us a long time to kind of get up to speed here. So, I'm sorry. I know that that's a lot, but, like, sophomore Juan from Dayton, Ohio probably would have ended up being more of a business, political science kind of guy. But Juan going through Albuquerque, New Mexico, and kind of facing an uphill battle against the grown-ups at the schools that I went to, shifted into that more tech and performance. So I moved out here to be a director and to cast voiceover, but I still had that background where it's like, I know how to code for multinodal supercomputer clusters. I'm actually not terrible on C++. Never learn C++.
You're a Bash Python guy. Right?
Don't do that.
No, I actually, it's funny. I took a class in C++. I remember getting like to week 4 and going, okay.
It's the worst, and it's the best, and it's so stupid. But like, to your point,
the guy behind me was like, just write my code and get this. And let me get out.
I was a kid, a little kid, and I was like paging through my mom's Pascal books, you know, when she was going to college.
Old school.
Yeah. Oh God. So it's stuff like that. Like, sorry to take the full trip down memory lane there, but it's incredible.
Sam asked for it.
Yeah.
And the reason why,
it is your fault.
Again,
yep.
This is the interesting thing. It's like in St. Louis, when you ask that question, you know where that's going to be a 20-minute conversation, because if you say to me somebody like I went to a military school, so it knew that was exactly what I knew I was going to do. Like, had no misconceptions about what I was doing when I graduated high school.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So that's why we asked. But like I said, in St. Louis, it's weird because that's a loaded question, because it's always about, for good and for bad, it identifies where. Well, if Juan said he went to John Burroughs, because that's where some famous actor, John Hamm, went to John Burroughs and actually taught at John Burroughs. John Burroughs is a private school, and a high-end private school. So if he said he went to John Burroughs, like, oh, he's a rich kid, as opposed to he went to like Roosevelt and again, these are very highly St. Louis. So if we had Galen on, he would know exactly what I'm talking about. But that question in St. Louis,
so a lot more we have a bit of that shorthand too, and it's one of the reasons why, like, for example, tomorrow morning I'm going to host a podcast. And at least one of the stories is probably going to be legit politics, like if it's FCC or FTC related. And I still don't think people get how many voices they never get to hear. I still don't think techies understand, especially here in North America, how lopsided the conversation is. And so to your point, when you say like, hey, what high school did you go to? And it's kind of a shortcut to what were your experiences growing up and what kind of perspective and worldview do you probably maintain? For someone like me, again, my home state's New Mexico, but my family's main residence for a long time was Las Lunas, New Mexico, which is outside Albuquerque. My wife grew up in Gallup. That's right on the border of Arizona. It's like 90% surrounded by Native American reservations. Right. And if you are tapped into that at all, you know these stories, but it's not my role. I am a bad messenger to tell the stories of people who need help. It's my job to try and get those people their own microphone. But I'm dealing with populations of people in rural New Mexico who try to send their kids to public schools and may or may not have running water and electricity at home. So how do we make them competitive in a 21st century economy? Right. Well, we actually need to start looking at broadband distribution. Those people need to be telling you their stories themselves. Right now, if you look up like the rates of investigated crimes on Native American reservations, it's pretty bad. Yeah. It's really bad. Like lots of things happen to these populations of people, and then the surrounding communities kind of go, oh, well, that's a shame. Yeah, and then nothing ever happens and gets better for them. So I can tell you that, and you can go, oh, that sounds bad. And we can just all sort of be privileged and outraged on those people's behalf. But until they get a chance to join this conversation and this discussion publicly, with their own tools, with their own computers, with their own data lines and connections, with their own cinematographers and cameramen, then it's still going to just be this sort of like, oh, kind of a shrug. That sounds so upsetting. I'm upset that I know that now.
and
I feel like...
And that's the beauty of Joe and I. So Joe has like these really fun questions, and then I ask a question, something as simple as, where'd you go to high school?
Where'd you go to high school? And Juan's like...
And then explain why...
Let me bring this down. Let me take the vibe here for a minute.
And I think it's funny because people make fun of people from St. Louis. They always ask, like, in St. Louis, it's a joke, right? Like, where'd you go to high school? I went to Cleveland ROTC. Okay, great. But we all know that there's an underlying back end to that question. And that's why I want to give you the context to it. And then, so Joe's real fun. And here I am bringing the heavy and the disenfranchised, and
I'm the fun guy.
So and Joe's a fun guy. I'm here to be kind of the
it doesn't take much. It takes very little to get me to soapbox. Like an empty little cardboard sleeve for a bar of soap is enough for me to stand on to start soapboxing to all the people around me whenever I need to. But it's stuff like that. Like
I appreciate.
I feel
your Monday show because you do delve into that, and I know that's a place that a lot of people can stay away from because it is it's a difficult concept to talk about. It's a different conversation to have, and you're willing to go there, and that's why one of the main reasons why, and one of the the multiple reasons why I
enjoy Juan's pajama parties part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the last Mondays are fun too. But
yeah, absolutely.
I also kind of I want to point this out though, because I know a lot of the faces in your chat. We have a lot of cross-pollination. Like I know these people, and these aren't just like names in a chat that I've seen on a feed. Like these are folks that I've had legit conversations with and interactions with. And like our buddy Andrew. I just finally got to meet Andrew face to face.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was great.
Andrew finally did what I was wanting to do, was like get out to California and actually have actual.
I have to kick my own ass because like I mean no offense to Andrew, I don't want to go to Missouri. But he came out here, so but for 10 years we've had an incredible friendship. Like we've had a very deep relationship, and it's taken us almost 10 years to finally meet up and see each other face to face. And so the reason why I tend to lean into stuff like that is because I kind of know in this group of people, in this community of folks in your chat, we already are talking to people who are good tech neighbors. They're the people in tech that you knock on the door and you borrow a cup of sugar from, and they're ready to help, and they just kind of need to be pointed in the right direction sometimes. Like, there's a DTNO. Like, again, that is exactly the kind of point I'm trying to get at. I am a positive application nihilist. I am hardcore nihilist. But you don't stop nihilism at just the heat death of the universe so nothing matters. The next step for positive nihilism is there is no guiding purpose, so I get to make the purpose. And I want a purpose that says, I'm going to leave this place a little better than how I found it. And right now, I don't think I'm doing a great job. I think there's a lot of junk happening all around me, and maybe I should be working a little harder to try and pick up after some other people. But I'm not going to go down with the ship, helping the ship go down. I'm going to try and bail this ship out.
And I can tell you that where you make the most impact is putting people like your daughter in a place where she can have the weapons and the engagement and the mindset to fight that war, because I think that's where we lose, right? I think like my daughter, right? My daughter told me today, she called me, I said, "Hey, honey, how good are you? How you doing?" "Oh, hey, Dad. Hey, did you hear the news about Israel?" Coming out of God, that was the first words out of her mouth.
Let's talk. That's a lot to talk about.
And I told her, I said, well,
that is a lot.
And right, and that's my daughter. And I think that's, you do that much, but I think when it's homegrown, like you have to instill in your daughter how this is going to be a different world. And Dad and I don't conceptualize this differently. Like you and I live in different worlds. I grew up in the Cold War, honey. That was a different dynamic than it is. You know,
let me tell you about rotary telephones. It's a whole thing.
Remember when shit used to go off the air at night? Like TVs would go off the air, and you like test pattern. You're like, "What's 2:00 in the morning? It's time to sleep, not watch YouTube and TikToks." Right.
Right.
So
but I came by it honest. My grandmother marched with Cesar Chavez here in Southern California. Like, it's a part of our family's fabric. We actually we're distantly related to like the old dons of old Mexico and the conquistadors who came up the Camino Real. And so our family history is very complicated. Like you drive by statues of conquistadors in New Mexico and you'll often see shoes scattered all over because the natives will throw shoes at these statues as a protest of the statue, in kind of the same way that we will often try to take down Civil War statues. Because one of the common punishments for the natives at that time, if the conquistadors thought that the people were getting out of line, is they'd take all the men and cut their feet off. And that would teach them to stay in line. Well, you just don't want your feet cut off. So now, I feel like that is an ugly era of my own family's history coming back. I'm 14th generation on this continent. And so there's not a part of this story where this isn't just how we talk about our family history. And, well, what do we do now? Like, we actually did achieve some kind of measure of success and privilege and wealth. And then also, at the same time, we saw people horrifically abused by the systems that we benefited from. And it's okay to express that, like, our family did some absolutely incredible things. Like, and we benefited from some incredible foresight and some very brave individuals who traveled all over this country. At the same time, we also need to understand that part of that family history is very complicated and messy and not the prettiest. And what do we learn from that? And that's the kind of grandmother I had. And she was like yardstick, la chancla, like brutal in kind of expressing and telling those stories.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
she was the matriarch of this family. She is the matriarch of this, but thankfully my grandmother's still around. After we're done with this call, I'm going to set up a call so that my daughter can talk to my grandmother for Mother's Day, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's that. It's not like I want to come in heavy-handed and brutal and like, oh, everything is politics, because I believe everything is politics. Everything you do is politics. But at the same time, like, if we don't know that people need help, look at all these amazing people in your chat that won't know to help. And that's not their fault. That's not on them to constantly be digging through this stuff. But if I tell a story and say, hey, like, there are kids here in Los Angeles that are getting their homework done in the parking lot of a McDonald's, that's worth a call to your local elected official to say that's not okay. Right. Like, it's okay. You know what? You can take your umbrage to Twitter or to Threads or wherever, but instead, you could literally just cut and paste your tweet and send it to your attorney general. And it would have way more impact than just being angry and being upset and being sad on Twitter. So it's that kind of thing where it's like, we have the people here. The people in this chat are some of the best people I know online. They're amazing individuals and they care. And that's why I love joining conversations like yours, is because I know you care. You wouldn't make the jokes you do if you didn't care. So we can build on that, and we can kind of help each other out, and we can make sure that our efforts are a lot more effective than just another hashtag crusade, which makes us feel good, but doesn't really accomplish a whole lot.
Yeah, and like I said, and just because we're talking about things that are dynamics in the United States, those things exist in the UK under different kinds of things.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's the beauty and the curse, right? Is the fact that it isn't an American problem; it's a humanity problem. So and this is why we love having you on. And Juan, like I said, I can tell you from Joe, I can speak for Joe here. I know for a fact that the reason why I got into podcasting and just general this kind of conversation is because of you. I would watch this and
That's how we even met, Sam.
I really know I cannot be. I know I cannot be the level. I'm going to bring a different thing to the table than Juan does, right? However, Joe and I met on your channel, and I feel the same way. And we love having you on, and we love everybody in that chat. All the people who have made this little community and who show up every time, who always communicate, and they give us good feedback. Like me and Joe, I listen to my podcast and go, Joe, do we suck? And he's like, I know. And he's like, and I go, and then the funny thing is then, and like a DT will make a comment, or I hear from Dan or somebody else to say, like Barry made a comment one time. He goes, dude, you're a really good interviewer. I go,
because you are, Sam.
So he goes, you actually are. He goes, and you're not even paying attention. And so
you should listen to Barry.
I should.
Barry is someone you should always listen to.
Yeah, and like Andrew, you kind of mean it, but he's our captain. Like we have these really, and because of tech, we have these awesome interactions and communications and bonds that transcend physical contact, right? And so we appreciate having you on, and this is something that I've looked forward to for the last week or so. And so
I've been digging it, and it just warms my heart to hear, because like I wouldn't be in the position I am in if a couple folks hadn't just given me a nudge when I started making content online. And it's everything I can do, like in telling the story about Native American populations. It's everything I can do to kind of help people express, like, you run your own race and you tell your own stories, and people care. They want to hear those stories. They want to see you run your race. And everyone in this audience, like, I know quite a few of their stories. And it's like anything I can do to kind of help nudge that along, like paying it forward from the little bump I got when I started making content online is kind of it's the nicest compliment you can pay someone like me, is that you're telling your stories and you're building this audience. And if I had anything to do in helping you set that up, that's mission accomplished. That's exactly what I'm here to do.
Absolutely, and I agree. Juan is the one, and so and that we're gonna go. This is a long show, 90 minutes, folks, but it's important to have these conversations and important to have one.
And there was loads of questions that the guys had, but we'll have to leave that for another time.
Absolutely, and like I said, and then season 5,
season 5.
We will have Juan on, and this will be the new benchmark. And so again, for
Sam, there's one thing I wanted to try and do. You don't have to do it though, Juan. I just wanted to see if you could do a British accent, because I make Sam do it all the time. I just want to hear what your British accent sounds like.
Wow, I'm really bad at accent work. I have not cribbed, so I haven't tried in earnest to do any kind of UK accent since college. We did an Irish festival, and I was playing I think it was supposed to be a northern, like, I want to say the accent they were working me was almost Welsh.
Right.
It was supposed to be these Irish characters, and I was supposed to come in as the heavy, like trying to be some kind of law enforcement.
That's not easy.
Authoritarian, and that's it. So I'm not going to offend anyone's ears with that. So I won't.
You wouldn't offend anyone. No one's offended here. It's a safe space.
I watched 2 seasons of Welcome to Wrexham. That's Welsh also, so I can't help. It's not gonna be good. So.
You heard Sam. Go on in, Sam. You got to do yours then, mate. Sorry.
Hello, love. It was a bit of crumpet. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. It's okay. Actually, we had a gentleman who was actually from Ireland, and it was interesting because before I would have met Joe, I wouldn't have picked up on the dynamics of it. Like all these, like Liverpool and Chelsea and the Midlands and
very
London.
different.
Like I wouldn't have picked up on it, but after like being in this community and listening to all these other people talk, it's funny because I kind of picked up, and I even said to Joe, I was like, I think this guy's I think he's originally Irish, and he's like, yeah, I think so. And it's the funny that I could pick it up. Whereas like 4 years ago, there would have been no way I would have been able to discern.
But it's also the same reason I don't speak Spanish a lot is because I grew up with a very Spanglishy, archaic flavor of Spanish. In New Mexico, it is, again, we haven't had any fresh conquistadors there in roughly 14 generations. So it's been a while. And so in New Mexico for a long time when I was a kid, we spoke this Spanglishy norteño, a very and it's all up in your nose, and I think that's ugly. Like even Mexico Spanish, the dialect is more direct. It's almost got kind of a Germanic attack to consonants, which is more articulate and it's clearer and it's easier to understand. But I love Argentinian Spanish. Like my daughter, her first Spanish teacher, she goes to a Spanish immersion school. Her first teacher was Argentinian, and my daughter gets me into trouble now because she has this beautiful accent, and she's a little blanquita like I am. And so we're at one of the Mexican supermarkets out here, Vallarta, and she doesn't really know what she's saying, but she can sight read because she Spanish is really easy language to pronounce. So she's just rattling off like all the things that we've purchased, and then the cashier turns to me and like, I'm not gonna speak Spanish to you. ¿Cuánto es?
You can always tell that people are from Mexico because, and I hate to say this, I don't want to be offensive, but Mexican sounds kind of, I want to say sing-songy, like it has this kind of like
but to that point
in tone, and like I know
if I were
speakers don't sound the same.
If I were to kind of pick up any like say I wanted to do character work and I wanted an accent out of the UK or just that greater island area in general, I would probably go northern. I really love just that kind of lilt. That you're saying, that kind of sing-songy element to it is like, to me it's really pretty. With English, because English is such a brutally kind of guttural with Germanic influences that when you give it, it's something about, and also the way that they phrase rhetorically. There are a lot of those like open-ended questions that kind of express the sentiment of what they're talking about, said in a very lilting fashion that I think is, I just think it's lovely. I think it's beautiful. Right. So again,
so like South American, like Brazilian, well, it's Portuguese, but we're like El Salvador, and Argentina and Belize, a different Spanish as opposed to Mexican Spanish as opposed to like
and I bring up Argentinian.
Quick.
I bring up Argentinian a lot because they're the Italians of the Spanish speaking community. It's like lyrical and they talk with their hands a whole lot and they're very expressive, and you're like, yeah, why couldn't I have learned that? Why did I have to learn like conquistador Spanglish?
Well,
it's just not as pretty.
Quiet, right? Just tie his hands together. That's how you do it. That's okay, and that's okay. I can have in my mood.
Fair.
So, again, thank you, Juan, for spending actually more than over an hour, and we really appreciate. We know you're
of course
really appreciate
work, and again, we love you. That's basically what it comes down to.
We're I love you guys too. So thank you.
And so, Joe, anything else? Oh yeah. By the way, extremeskins.co.uk. Skin your shit.
Yeah, skin your shit. Yep.
Got stuff in case you break your duo, which if you have an OG duo, you probably got a crack in the screen and the glass. Because you do.
Got a crack in mine, so yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So skin your shit, extremeskins.co.uk. We're still working on getting a number or like a hashtag.
Yeah, it should be NTPSYC. We're hoping to get SYS. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nice.
SYS. So NTPSYS will be our discount code.
Absolutely. And so go check them out if you want to skin your stuff.
If Extreme Skins ask, it's skin your stuff, okay, guys? Not skin your shit.
But if you're on the show, you know.
Skin your shit.
That's right. Absolutely. So
we need to do that.
Absolutely.
Yo, DJ.
Spin that. Yeah, spin that stuff. Yeah, right. That doesn't sound right. All right. So for Sam and for Joe and for Juan, thank you for so much for coming to the Nomad Tech Project. Again,
Much
download this
appreciated.
on the we'll have it on the all your RSS feeds and all that stuff, and of course, as always on YouTube. So thank you very much. And for all of us, again, happy Mother's Day. If you are a mother, congratulations. I know JoJo's in the chat. I saw that. Happy Mother's Day to JoJo and anybody else. And for myself and for Joe, for Juan, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next Sunday. We don't know who we're going to have a guest. We don't even know what we're going to talk about. But that's
One last thing. Check out Juan's Flickr.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, right on. Thanks.
Yeah, because that B shot, I loved it. And that's what took me to your Flickr, because I saw it on your Insta. And I was like, oh, now I can see the full quality of it. And yeah, so definitely check it out.
I've given up on Instagram because I love sharing photos. Yeah, and wouldn't you know it, little busted old school Flickr is so nice. So yeah, I've been living there.
I'm gonna revamp mine now. It made me want to go on there again.
Absolutely, and we'll make sure we put all those links to the Flickr and all the things. So again, Mastodon is where you're going to find Juan most of the time because he's not really on the Twitches and the X's or the Twitters.
It's Twitter. It's Twitter. Don't even pretend. It's a stupid thing to even say it's not Twitter. It's twitter.com.
That's right.
This is what it is.
It's okay. Redirect you back to Twitter because that's how it goes. So for myself and for Juan and for Joe, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Enjoy your tech. We love your faces. Be excellent to each other. And we'll catch you.
Party on, dudes.
Party on. I was going to say.
Love you guys.
Bye-bye.